All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to give an entire country, Nepal, a 5-minute health checkup. We'll be using the results from this massive nationwide survey to get a real look at what's happening on the ground.
I mean, think about it. How do you even begin to take a nation's pulse? How can you really know what's working, what isn't, and, who's getting left behind? Well, it turns out there's a pretty powerful way to do just that.
And that's exactly what Nepal did back in 2022. They rolled out this incredibly detailed demographic and health survey. You can think of it like a complete medical chart for the entire country. And the diagnosis? Well, it tells this amazing story of huge wins, but also some really tough, persistent challenges.
So let's get into it. What does a national health checkup even look like? I mean, we're not talking about some simple online poll here. This was a massive effort. We're talking teams of people going door to door all across the country to collect data that gives us a true picture of the nation.
And when I say massive, I mean it. The survey team visited more than 14,000 households. That number is so important because a sample size that big is what makes this data so credible, so reliable. It gives us this really clear, high-resolution picture of health from, the most remote Himalayan villages all the way to the busy cities in the south.
Okay, so let's start with the good stuff, because there's a lot of it. The data shows some truly incredible success stories in public health over the last few decades. I mean, we're talking about changes that have literally saved and improved countless lives.
Now, to really get one of the biggest changes, we need to talk about something called the total fertility rate, or TFR. It's a simple concept, really. It's just the average number of kids a woman is expected to have in her lifetime. And trust me, this one number tells you a ton about social and economic progress.
And just look at this transformation. Back in 1996, the average was 4.6 children. Fast forward to 2022, and that number has dropped all the way down to 2.1. That's a huge deal. It's what experts call replacement level. Basically, the population is stable. This is a massive, seismic shift. And it's happening because of things like better access to family planning and, super importantly, more opportunities for women in education and the economy. When that happens, it lifts up the whole country.
Right. So as family sizes change, there's naturally a bigger focus on making sure every single childbirth is as safe as it can be. And that leads us to another major win for Nepal: maternal health. It's all about making sure moms and their babies get the care they need. Because honestly, where a mother gives birth can be a matter of life and death.
And the progress here is just staggering. Get this, today, 84% of all births in Nepal happen in a proper health facility with trained professionals. That is a gigantic public health victory. It's a huge reason why mortality rates for mothers and babies have dropped. But, and there's always a but, the story isn't all sunshine.
Because for every amazing step forward, the survey also points a big, bright spotlight on the work that's still left to do. It shows us where the biggest challenges are and where the inequalities are really, really sharp.
You see this theme pop up over and over in the data: geography. It's almost like in Nepal, your health can boil down to one single thing: where you live. The data shows this massive gap between what life is like in a city versus a rural village.
Let's take something really basic, like what people use to cook. In the cities, more than half of households have access to clean cooking fuel. But you go out to the rural areas, that number drops off a cliff to just 19%. And this isn't just about making life easier, it's a critical health issue. That indoor air pollution from old-school stoves, it's a major, major cause of deadly respiratory diseases.
And it's not just the urban-rural divide. There's an even more basic problem: hunger. The survey found that for about 1 out of every 8 people in Nepal, just getting enough to eat is a daily struggle. We're talking about families having to skip meals or eat less nutritious food. And often, it's the children who suffer the most. And here we go again with geography. In a remote, mountainous region like Karnali Province, almost a third of the people are food insecure. A third! Now, compare that to Gandaki Province, where it's only 8%. It just goes to show you the day-to-day reality can be worlds apart depending on where you are in the country. All of this leads us to what is maybe one of the most stubborn and worrying problems the survey found: child nutrition. I mean, we all know that getting the right food in those first few years of life, that's the foundation for everything that comes after. But the data here is pretty alarming. A staggering 43% of children under 5 in Nepal have anemia. That's basically an iron deficiency, and it's a huge problem because it can permanently affect a child's brain development and physical growth. Whether it's mild or severe, anemia is like putting up a roadblock that stops a child from ever reaching their full potential.
So it's interesting. As Nepal gets a handle on some of these long-standing health problems, the survey shows it's now entering a new chapter, facing a whole new set of challenges, the kinds of things we often see in more developed countries.
Yeah, the whole health landscape is literally shifting under their feet. They've made amazing progress fighting infectious diseases, but now they're seeing a rise in chronic non-communicable diseases, or NCDs. These are things that aren't contagious, long-term conditions like diabetes or, as the survey highlights, high blood pressure.
And this is a big deal. For the first time ever on this scale, the survey actually went out and measured people's blood pressure. And what they found is that hypertension is a really significant and growing problem. We're talking more than a quarter of men and about 22% of women with high blood pressure. That puts them at a way higher risk for things like heart attacks and strokes.
Here's another first, and it's a huge one. The 2022 survey included a whole section dedicated to mental health. That is a landmark move. It's this official recognition that, hey, health isn't just physical, it's about what's going on in our minds, too.
So what did they find? Well, these are the first ever numbers on this scale. The survey found that 4% of women and 2% of men reported symptoms of depression. Now, those numbers might not sound huge, but remember, this is the first baseline. And what's really, really important here is the connection the data shows between mental health and poverty. These symptoms are way more common in the poorest households.
Okay, so we've done our quick checkup, we've looked at the data. What's the final diagnosis here? What is the big takeaway from all this information about the health of Nepal?
If you take away one thing, it should be this. Nepal is a nation in transition. On one hand, you have these incredible, life-saving wins in areas like family planning and making childbirth safer. But on the other hand, the country is also dealing with these deep, persistent inequalities and a whole new wave of challenges like chronic diseases and mental health.
So really, the survey has done its job. It's laid out the roadmap. It's shown exactly where the problems are and where the needs are greatest. The hard part starts now, taking action. And that leaves us with the big question, right? With all this data in hand, how can Nepal use it to build a health system that bridges all these gaps and make sure that a healthy life isn't a lottery, but a reality for every single person in every single village?